I'm Hatter with Games Squared, and I'm bringing you the mono elf list that I ran against the Reflect Refrain deck. Not much to say about the general deck, except it's a swarm type and you want to drop everything in your hand. Meanwhile, most of the cards give you advantage for having more elves, so meh. Paired with a ruler that's basically a one-man army with no extra buffs, you're doing pretty well for yourself. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Starting with the ruler. Pharaoh Leo, a green elf ruler that judgments for 3 and energizes for wind. Rest 2 recovered elves you control, recover target magic stone. Play this ability only once per turn. Once per turn, but not only on your turn, which means you can do it during your turn and your opponent's turn if you have spicy quick cast stuff. He's pretty good for ramping in general on his front side. And he judgments for 3, which is incredibly easy to get to. Basically, if you go second, you're flipping turn 3. If you're going second and you happen to drop a Sacred Elf or a Spirit Caller Elf, which I'll get to in a moment, you will be able to flip turn 2. Though, hyper-aggressive flips are not always the best thing. Because if you flip before you really have a base, you can really get screwed over. Especially if they manage to kill Faerur somehow. But what you really want to do is flip him into his J-Ruler side about mid-game, because then you just lock down the board with his abilities. And let's get into those abilities right now. When he flips, he is an 800-1000 J-Ruler. This puts him well above most burn. But that is not all, because he also enters the field with 4 Gale protection counters. And he enters the field with them. That's important, because if he just had it on an enter ability, he'd hit the field and then he could blast it. End of Faerur. But because he enters with them, he can immediately use his abilities. Of which there are 2 that use the counters. The first is to give target elf barrier, including himself, because it's not just a Resonator. So he can give himself barrier and just be super untouchable. Or he can give target elf plus 300, plus 300. Oh, so good. He can either buff himself insanely for an attack, he can buff a Resonator so it survives a field wipe, he can buff himself tons so that he survives the final battle. There is so much utility on this side. And that's not even counting his enter ability, which is search your deck for an elf Resonator with total cost 4 or less and put it in the field. Oh my god, so good. You can literally search any elf in this deck because they are all 4 or less. Typically, you want to search a Fina or an Oberon, depending on your board state. Because a Fina will give all your elves plus 4/+4, while an Oberon will give you 4 tasty elves to exploit. Anyway, that's enough about him. Let's move on to the Resonators, the main meat of the deck. Starting off with the iconic Faerur Resonator, Spirit Caller Elf. We're running 4 of it because it's amazing and you always want to have it turn 1. Because you play it for 1 green and it gives you another elf. So 2 elves, you can immediately use Faerur's ability to say, I don't know, drop a Sacred Elf off of it, drop itself. Basically, it enables his frontside ability immediately, and is also free if you have another 1-drop turn 1. Late game, though, it becomes very strong because you're ramping into flip, you're ramping into high-cost Resonators, you're ramping into Faerur's command. That sort of thing. But on to the next one. As mentioned, Sacred Elf. We're only running 3 of it because I don't like seeing more than 1 per game. 1 is pretty cool. It's an okay early game body, and it rests to produce green. But you don't absolutely have to have it. In my opinion, of course. You can call me an idiot all you want. I can't wait for that. However, I run 3, it produces a green, It ramps. There you go. Next up, we have the better ramp tool in your deck, Melfi, the successor of Sacred Wind. A 400/400 elf resonator that costs 1 green and 1. So, total cost 2, 4/4. Seems kind of weak, doesn't it? But wait! It has an ability. Rest 2 recovered elves you control produce 1 will of any attribute. That is why it's a 4 of in this deck. Because, oh my god, that is strong. It's basically Faerur's front side, plus you can do it as many times as you want per turn. So you flood the field with elves, and then you use those elves, play more elves, and have more elves, and have super fun time off of everything. If you have one of these out when you flip Faerur, you can grab Oberon, and immediately have 2 extra will, because that's cool. Next up, we have another 4 of Guide of Heaven. A 200/200 for 2. Oh, that's terrible. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because it has an activate ability. You can rest it to reveal the top card of your main deck. And if it's an elf, you put it in your hand. You can draw so much off of this card. Because everything but, as I said, 6 cards are elves. So you're almost always going to hit that. When you don't, it really hurts. However, this is still a free draw whenever you use it. And even better, if you want to pay 1 extra will for it, you can awaken it and search your deck for any elf resonator you want. Reveal it and put it into your hand. So she's already a +1 if you play her for 3. And probably plus more at the end of your opponent's turn. On to the next resonator, which is more of just a body that I put in to be a body. Wiseman of Winds, an 800/600 for 2. Enter, banish this card if you don't control another elf. Self-explanatory, it's a big body, we run 3. Easy. But on to one of, I don't know, no, it's my second favorite in the deck. Christie, the Warden of Sanctuary. It's a 4/4 for 2 green. A lot of 2-drops in here, by the way. A lot of 2-drops. Other elves you control cannot be targeted by spells or abilities your opponent controls. Other elves, not other elf resonators. That's key because she protects Faerur from Black Moonbeam. She protects your other elves from getting lightning striked or thundered or flame of the outer world. But her second ability is what really makes her cool. Rest 5 recovered elves you control. You gain 500 life and draw 2 cards. You get tons of card advantage out of this. Because using your Spirit Callers and your general elf draw, elf swarm tactics, you're going to have enough elves to use this. And because it doesn't have anything to do with swiftness or whether they enter that turn, you can use it at the end of your opponent's turn or even on your turn if you need to gain a little bit of emergency life and draw extra cards to play more cards. So, easy 4 of, easy life. Next is a 3-drop 3 of. Commander of the Crowd, 3 green, Resonator Elf, 7/7, decent body. When it enters the field, you get 2 more elves. And whenever it attacks other elves you control, gain +1/+1. You play this for your 3 curve. That's basically it. And when you're swinging, always swing with this first because you want that buff. Other than that, it's pretty big body with a little Faerur buff. She's 1,000,000. She chunks your opponent pretty easy, but she's especially good when you combine her with our next Resonator that is another 3 of, and my personal favorite in the deck, Fina, the Silver Player. 2 green and 1 for a 400/400 elf. Continuous if your ruler is Christie, the Wind Tracker, or your Dray ruler is Helsing, the Vampire Hunter. Resonators your opponent controls lose all symbol skills. We're not running Christie, but it's still cool. It's still a cool ability. But her next ability is what makes her my personal favorite. Other elves you control gain +4/+4. Let's see what that does. It makes Faerur a 12/14. It makes your 1/1 elf tokens 500/500s. It makes Wiseman of Winds a 12/1000. And it makes Commander of the Crowd an 11/11. Holy fuck, it puts all of your elves in prime attack position if you can protect her, which is very easy once Faerur is on his J-Ruler side. Flames of the Outer World is basically the only thing that will take her out, unless you have another Fina and an Amansul, or 2 other Finas, or 3 Amansuls, or any sort of buff that you can give her. I pluck her whenever I flip, if I have a decent enough board state where I could just go for game the turn after, because she just adds so much. That ability was put onto Feasting's J-Ruler side, and she flips for 5. That's huge. That's good. I love her. And next we have the Copycat Faerur. Pharaoh Leo, Rallying King. He's a 2-of because you occasionally want to search him, you occasionally want to draw him late game, but he's 4/4 for 1,000, and when he enters the field or attacked, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an elf, put it in your hand, and you can rest 5 recovered elves you control to bring him back from your graveyard. So he's an immortal attacker that you can just throw into your opponent's face, and every time he comes back, he draws you a card. Pretty good. Pretty good in my opinion. But next, Oberon, Lord of Elves, another 2-of. A 4-drop, 7/7, and when it enters your field, you put 3 1/1 elves into play. He's an elf generator. That's what he does. That's it. Enough said. Grab him with favor if you have a Christie or if you have a Fina already. Not much else to be said. And then I have a 1-of Elvish Hunter, a 3-drop, 6/7. When it enters your field, deals 100 damage multiplied by the number of elves you control to target Resonator. Not too strong, but it's useful tech in certain situations, especially when you search her off of Guide of Heaven, or if you search her off of Faerur when you're in a pinch. It's meh. It's meh, honestly. It's a 1-of because it does things, and green doesn't have as much tribal kill as I would like currently. But she's a 1-of. If you draw her, you're going to be kind of sad. But if you search her, you're going to be kind of glad. And next we have the pinnacle of Faerur searching things, Tia, the Archer Princess of Elves, that does 1.5 million things. She's a 900 for 4. When it enters your field, you search for Tia's Falcon. When it enters your field, target Resonator gains when damage is dealt to this card. Destroy it until end of turn. And for 6, and resting her, you can deal 1,000 damage to target player. She does a huge amount of things. For example, she searches the Falcon, which I have as a 1-of, so you can search him. She gives something the ability to be destroyed, so you can throw an elf token at it. Or if you have enough will to play the Falcon afterwards, you can also deal 200 damage to that Resonator while hitting your opponent in the face for 200 and destroying it. And then late game, she destroys players' faces. Like, if your opponent has some kind of wall in the way, you could just ping off of Tia and close out the game. It's really strong versus control decks. But anyway, she's a 1-of. The Falcon is a 1-of, which doesn't matter much. Quickly, it's a 200 flying for green. If you control Tia, it gains swiftness, and whenever it attacks, you deal 200 damage to target player Resonator. You don't ever want to draw it. It's searchable from Tia. That's it. That's all you want to do. Next up, we have one of the non-elf cards, Secluded Elven Village Amansul, which might as well be an elf, as it's a 1-drop, gives other elf resonators, wait no, not other, gives elf J resonators +0/+2. Gives them a buff, puts them out of Tama range, makes them nice. And it also allows all J resonators you control to block flying. That's really helpful when you start going against the likes of, I don't know, like Mephistopheles or Ayu or any sort of flying thing that you'd like to throw a token in front of. And it also makes it so resonators your opponent controls with flying can't attack your resonators, which is very kind of weak, but occasionally it is applicable. That's 3 of, and we're on to the last 2 cards in the deck. Faerur's Command. 7, recover all Resonators, give them +1000/+1000, and Pierce. It's a game finisher. You play it late game by ramping into it with Melfi, or you just call enough stones to use it. Give your 5+ elves +1000/+1000 in Pierce. You're gonna win. It's just a card that can close out the game versus a control matchup. You can close out the game if you're kind of stuck or in a sort of stalemate with your opponent. It's very strong. Plus, because you're running Melfi and the Sacred Elves and the other elves, when you rest them to do things, you can still play that. When you rest them to create the will to play it, it will recover them for you. So you're never going to lose anything by ramping into it using Melfi or using your Sacred Elves. That rounds out the main deck. Now on the side deck. I'll be honest, some of these I just kind of threw in there as side thoughts. First up, we have Helsing, Hunter of the Undead. She's an elf for 3, 800/700. When it enters your field, remove target Darkness Resonator from the game and prevent all damage that would be dealt to it by Darkness Resonators. This is purely a 4 of Mephistopheles counter or Abdul Killer, that sort of thing. Not Abdul Killer because Abdul will stop her, but she's just a I hate darkness card. That's enough for her, and she's an elf. Next we have Elvish Bowman, 4 of, 1-drop elf for that's a 300/300. Rest him to destroy target addition. Alice's World of Madness. Amino Habakiri, Necromancy of the Undead Lord, any Kaguya stuff. He's just really good. He's situational, but he's good. Next you have Reefus, the Wind Castle. 2 for an addition field. Prevent all damage that would be dealt by normal spells to Resonators you control. It's a 3 of because I hate Lightning Strike and I hate Thunder. And I hate Outer World, or Flames of the Outer World. And this stops them all in their tracks. And decks that are running those cards typically don't run Addition Destruction. So you get one of these out and your opponent's like, well, can't hit your Resonators anymore. GG. Next we have Bullseye Bow. 2 of in the sideboard, 4, destroy target Resonator if you control an elf. Meh. You're always going to control an elf. It's 4, it kills a Resonator. That's the only reason why I put it in there. Admittedly, I should have probably run the next card as a 3 of instead of just a 1 of. Great Tornado. 7, you can rest Resonators to help pay for the colorless cost, and it destroys 2 non-magic stone entities. So J-Ruler, Resonator you're having trouble with, Addition you're having trouble with, that sort of thing. I think I'm going to cut the Bullseye Bows and put the Tornadoes in. Cut the bull, put in the Tornado. And then for our last card in the sideboard, we have 1 Amansul. Just so you can get that 4 of, just in case you need it. On the stone deck, we run, it's pretty simple. We run 4 Saintly Evelyn stones because having a 1/1 Resonator become a 2/2 Resonator is stronger than you think. Produce a green, target elf gains +1/+1 until end of turn. 2 pretty solid things. It produces your will, or it does the pretty solid ability of giving an elf +1/+1. Easy. Next, you have Spirit Stone. Produces green, and you can banish it to draw cards. Pretty nice late game, or if your stones start getting locked down, you can do some nice stuff. Next, you have Little Red the Pure Stone, and auto-include in nearly every deck. Because when it enters, you choose a will type, then you can produce will of that attribute, and you can target a Resonator with that attribute and give it +200/+200 until end of turn. Enough said. And as the last stone, we have Feasting, the Holy Windstone. It produces green. You can pay green and rest it to give target J Resonator immunity to normal spells your opponent controls until end of turn. Basically, it cannot be targeted by normal spells. Helps keep your Resonators alive. That's it. But that's the stone deck, the main deck, sideboard. Like I said, the main strategy is swarming your opponent out. you want to try to drop as many elves, draw more elves, and just kind of keep the entire insanity wave of elf bodies going until your opponent eventually withers under your constant assault of the elves. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see all your comments telling me how I'm dumb. Or maybe telling me how good at the game and handsome I am, maybe? Anyway, if you like this, go ahead and check out the video that I play this deck in, the Reflect Refrain Faerur match. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.